Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Mirror Sparkle Ornaments, which you can see right here. Please follow the link in the description where you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, as well as a link to the written pattern and all of the supplies you need. To make the Mirror Sparkle Ornaments, you'll need lily sugar and cream. You'll be able to get a whole bunch out of one skein. You'll also need stitch markers, 2 1-inch round mirrors per ornament, a US 7 4.5 millimeter hook, this one is by Susan Bates, and of course your usual crochet supplies, a yarn needle, and some scissors. So let's take a closer look at the finished Mirror Sparkle Ornament. So here are one of the finished Mirror Sparkle Ornaments I've made. You can see here, there's the mirror in the center, and it's double-sided. That's why we have 2 mirrors. They're sandwiched between these crochet rings that are then crocheted together with a hanging loop and an optional tassel right down here at the bottom that I've simply knotted onto a chain space that was made specifically for it. So let's get started making our own Mirror Sparkle Ornaments. Now, as I've just shown you, the Mirror Sparkle Ornaments are 2-sided, so we need to make 2 of those rings to sandwich our mirrors between. So to make the first one, we're going to go ahead and you can either start with a slip knot or you can simply fold the yarn and put it on your hook like this. I like to do this because it avoids having a knot then for me to crochet over. Then we're going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we want to join to that very first chain we made so that we create a ring to crochet into. So we want to find that very first chain, and you can slip stitch to whatever part of that chain you desire. There we are. So now we have formed a ring. We're going to chain 1 and work 16 single crochets right into this ring. So if you'd like, you can work right over that tail, but you don't have to. We're just going to weave it in when we're done. So as I say, we're going to go right into this ring itself to make these single crochets. You don't have to work into any individual chains or anything like that. So as you work around this ring, you may find that you need to scooch those stitches over a little bit to fit all 16 in there, but we really want a nice solid ring that's really filled up with all those stitches. So as you can see here, I just go right into that ring space, not the individual chains. Yarn over, pull up my loop, and yarn over and pull through 2 to finish a standard single crochet. So go ahead and make 16 total single crochets right into this ring. Okay, so now I've got my ring with 16 single crochets all worked around. So for our first side, what we would do is go ahead and join and break our yarn, or break your yarn and sew a join, however you like to finish it off. I've already got one of those made right here for side 1. To make side 2, we start out the exact same way. Make our chain of 8, join it in a circle, and single crochet 16 into the ring. Then we can go ahead and break the yarn if we want to, or you can simply join to that first stitch with a slip stitch and leave it attached for a couple less ends to weave in when we're all done. But the point is to have 2 finished rings with 16 single crochets in each of these rings. Now I've used my yarn needle to weave in the ends on these circles, although I still have this end attached that I'm going to continue crocheting with. So what we want to do now is match these 2 circles up and start using our stitch markers to stick them together. So I'm going to, here are the right sides, the sides we crocheted from, so I'm going to flip one of them over and put it behind the other and just basically sandwich them together. It doesn't matter really how you line them up. There should be a total of 16 stitches on each. So what we want to do now is take our stitch markers, oh, there's a few more, and start, like I say, joining these together. We don't have to join every pair of stitches, but if you do every 3 or 4 stitches, it just makes it a lot easier to seam it all together, and it'll help hold those mirrors in here as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with a few of them here. So I've got one there, so we'll skip 2 there, get that one in there, come over here, skip 2, make sure we're matching that up correctly. Just makes it a lot easier when it's time to seam these together. That way you don't accidentally get off track. You know, it can happen very easily to work into the wrong stitch twice or something and just, you know, be off slightly on your stitching around and end up with an extra stitch somewhere. So we'll get these matched up here, and I've got about every third stitch or so matched up. Now that we've gone about halfway around, what we want to do is take our mirrors, and we want to do the same thing that we did with our circles. We want to flip one over and put them back to back so that they both face out. Now what we can do is we can slip them right in there, sandwich them right between our crochet layers, and then we'll continue to put our stitch markers in to hold these layers together with those mirrors in between. So let's see, I'll skip 2 there. There's 1, so I'll skip these 2 and attach it to that stitch. And then just come around here to the other side, get another stitch marker here, skip 2 that way, put 1 in there, skip 2 that way, put 1 in there. I really like to kind of flip it back and forth just to make sure that I'm matching these up correctly. And then once we've got most of that way around there, you can see now our mirrors aren't going anywhere. They're nicely sandwiched in there. So we can set those aside and get that loop back on our hook here. I had just put a stitch marker in there to keep that loop open so it didn't accidentally pull out and start undoing our stitches here while we did our assembly. But now I will slide that back down, and now we're ready for round 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start by going right into that stitch I joined to, and then the stitch right behind it on that second layer. I can tell these 2 are matched up here, so I'm going in right before that stitch marker. Then I'm simply going to make a slip stitch. There we are. And we're not going to be working into these, so it wants to be nice and tight, and then chain 1. So that's our first one, and then we need to do this 6 more times for a total of 7 times. So we're going to go under the next 2 stitches, and these are the 2 with this stitch marker. So go ahead and pull this stitch marker out of the way here, and then make another slip stitch. It's hard to say for me today for some reason. Didn't want to come through. Let's do that again. Get through there, pull through a slip stitch, like so, and chain 1. So that's 2 of them. Then we go to the next set of stitches here for number 3. And my yarn split a little bit on that one. That happens sometimes, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that back out because I really want it to look nice here. There we go. So we'll try again for number 3. That's much better. And then chain 1. And there's number 4. It is a little tight, but that's what we want for these stitches. I'm going to go ahead and pull this next stitch marker out of the way. There we go. Go into the next set for 5, then chain 1. Let's see here, 6, and chain 1. Don't want to forget that chain 1. That's what gives us this great, slightly ruffled look around the edges here. And then finally 7, and chain 1. Then what we're going to do is go ahead and slip stitch in the next stitch, just as we've been doing. So I'll go ahead and pull that stitch marker out of the way. So this would be the 8th slip stitch of this round. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead, and what we want to do is chain our hanging loop right here, this loop right here. I used 10 chains because that was the right length for me. If you're using these, or however you're using them, wherever you want to put them, you can chain this hanging loop as long as you like. So if you need a longer loop, go ahead and chain however long you need it to be. If you need something shorter, go ahead and chain a shorter loop. Again, this is just a hanging loop, so we don't have to worry about getting back into these chains, so they can be as tight as you'd like as well. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll go ahead and do 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I've got my chain of 10. Again, this part can be as long or as short as you'd like. Then we're just going to go right back to what we've been doing. Slip stitch in the next stitch, going of course through both of those layers. Go ahead and pull that one down on there tight. There we are. And chain 1. So again, we're going to continue this all the way around until we get right back down to that that next stitch, the last pair of stitches before our first join. So I'll see you when we get down there. Okay, so now I've made those last 8 slip stitches followed by a chain 1 after each one. Then we're going to chain 2 more after that very last one here. So that's a total of a chain 3 there. All right, and then what we want to do is go ahead and join to that first slip stitch. Now, it's a lot harder to slip stitch into a slip stitch, especially when we made it nice and tight. So I'm going to cut my yarn instead and just pull up on that string there. And then I will use my yarn needle to actually sew that down to create our little chain 3 loop down here at the bottom. So I'll just find that first slip stitch, stick my needle in there. Oops, there we go. And pull that right down in. Then I always like to go back through that last chain one more time just to really secure it down on there. I'm not really worried about this turning or anything like that because it's going to get covered up by our tassels. So then I will just flip this over here and just weave that end in right around this ring, right along the outside of the mirror. You do want to make sure, of course, as you're weaving in those ends that you don't cross over the mirror and create lines in front. Unless, of course, that's what you want to do. You can always make it your own. Okay, so after you've got the top of your ornament made, you can set that aside and we're going to make the tassel. Now, this is a very simple form of tassel, but that's what I love about it. It's quick, it's easy, and no special tools are needed, not even a piece of cardboard. What we want to do is get 6 pieces of yarn, approximately 10 inches long. Again, the actual length doesn't matter. You just want to make sure it's long enough that when it's folded in half, it gives you a long enough tassel, however long you want it to be, plus enough to trim it up nice and even. So I'm just going to lay this out right here. That looks like about 10 inches to me. And then the quick and easy method I used is to just keep doubling that length back on itself until I've got 6 strands or so. Because again, we're going to be cutting off, trimming those ends, so having them not cut ahead of time doesn't really matter. So there's 5 strands of yarn. And if I do it again, let's lay that out and double check. Yep, we now have 6 strands of yarn. So I'll go ahead and cut that end there. And then I'm simply going to get that straightened out again. There we go. Fold these in half. Oop, let's try that again. So I've got them full length here. I'm going to go ahead and fold them in half right there so that those sides there are about the same length. Then I'm going to pick up my ornament and decide which side I like best. I think this side looks best. This was the side that was on the right side as I was making that final join round. So I want to insert my hook from behind through that chain 3 loop. Then I'm simply going to drop that folded portion right there in the center, right over that hook, and use my hook to pull it right through that chain 3 space. Like so. There we go. I'm going to pull it out a good couple of inches because I find the next part a little easier to do with my fingers. You can use your hook if you prefer. I'm going to go right into that loop there that we've made. Make sure I get all those strands there. Then I'm going to grab those ends and just pull them right on through. Like so. There we are. So now, when I pull all those strings down, you can see we get this really nice knot right there. And when we come from behind, that puts this in front. So from whatever direction on the back there, you can see it just looks a little bit different. I like this side better, so that's why I'm always sure to go from behind with my hook. Now we've got our tassels attached, and of course the end's a little funky here. We've got some folds and it's all uneven, but that's not a big deal. We can just lay it out nice and straight, take as much time as you like. If you're real strict, real picky about having them real straight, you can take more time. If you want it a little funkier and looser, go ahead and just lay it out here. And then we're going to find that end and just cut it off wherever we want the end of our tassel to be. Again, long, short, it's up to you. You can get precise as you want, keep it a little sloppy, however you like to do it. Get rid of those ends there, give it a little shake, and you have your very own Mirror Sparkle Ornament. And that's how to crochet the Mirror Sparkle Ornament pattern, which you'll find for free again on mooglyblog.com. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.